In this video, I want to talk about why you might want to start a homestead or start a farm or start a garden. And these are the main reasons that we've personally decided to do that. So the first one is that obviously you get to grow your own food. And I think all of us understand more as the world changes how fragile this whole food system that we participate in is. So when you go to the grocery store, some of the food that you're getting is being shipped from around the world. You don't know the working conditions of the people who are producing it, picking it, shipping it, and really you don't know how fresh that food is. And a lot of times it's not that fresh. So being able to grow your own food means you're eating the most fresh, delicious, nutritious food. You know exactly what went into it and exactly what did not go into it. And that gives you so many options for really feeding your family the best healthy food that you can. And so some of the side benefits obviously is that you get really good tasting fresh food. You can preserve it. You can keep it going for multiple seasons. And there's just so many benefits to be able to grow your own food. You get some food sovereignty back. So you're not dependent on this global system where other people pick prices and it really impacts your grocery bill. So this brings a lot of that control over your family's nutrition back into your space. So along with that, you're probably not going to be getting as much packaging around your food. So yes, you might need some glass jars for canning, or you might need a couple other tools that you didn't have before you started homesteading or farming or gardening. But chances are you're not going to be using as much plastic, you're not going to be wasting as many materials, and you're also not transporting or shipping a bunch of things yourself. So that is a huge impact on our global footprint and our carbon emissions. And I think that is huge. Another reason that we love having started a homestead and a farm is that we get to expend calories to produce food. And that's a weird concept to think about, but basically a lot of times we're going to the grocery store or going to a restaurant and everything is prepared for us. We've never lifted a finger to produce this food. And I totally get that it's a co-creation process when it comes to growing food. You're not definitely the only person producing it or the only entity being a part of producing this food. You are, co-creating with nature and planting seeds and, watering and helping with compost and all of these things. And there's so many microorganisms involved. And obviously the animals, if you are, eating animal products, those are obviously from them and from their bounty. You appreciate it a lot more when it's something that you helped grow or helped produce. And it just makes a bigger difference when you are eating this thing. You know exactly how much energy and how much time and effort went into producing it. Another big part of why we wanted to start a homestead and a farm is to increase the biodiversity both in our lives and obviously on the planet. So I'm here with these beautiful zinnia flowers, and I have seen so many hummingbirds and butterflies and bees and all kinds of other insects around this plant and around these flowers because this is food for them. And yes, we are trying to increase biodiversity across the farm. We're planting new trees and new shrubs and new flowers and all kinds of things. And we're also really trying to increase the biodiversity of plants and the biodiversity of other insects and beings and creatures. And obviously by bringing animals to this farm too, we're increasing the number of different species that are living in this one area. And one surprising thing once we moved to the farm and started having sheep and chickens and geese and ducks is that people come over and they're like, wow, it's like a zoo over here. And I thought that was interesting because I never thought of our farm as a zoo, but because so many of us don't have day-to-day interactions with other animals or other species, it is like going to a zoo when you meet something that's not a dog or a cat or maybe a gerbil. So being able to have that biodiversity and also being in contact with these other species that we're not used to seeing, I think is really important and really brings it back to how things used to be maybe not that long ago. One more unexpected benefit of having a farm and a homestead is that you'll never be bored. So there is so much to learn, and ourselves being a bunch of nerds here at the Nerdery, we love learning, and we know that there's always going to be, the next level. Maybe it's a different plant that we're learning about, maybe it's a different soil technique, composting technique, maybe it's a new project that we're building out. We know that there's always going to be something that we will need to keep learning about, doing research, testing, split testing sometimes, different ideas, and that to me is a great benefit before starting your own homestead or farm, and just knowing that you're going to be on a lifelong learning journey, and that is a fun thing too. The other big reason to consider starting a farm or a homestead is the connection with the community. So one thing we've quickly realized is that when you start a farm or really this kind of big endeavor, it is not a solo thing. So I have been in business for a long time, in an online business, and I've worked with a lot of different entrepreneurs and different people, and we all kind of start off as solopreneurs. We kind of start off as, individuals working in our businesses on our own. And when you start a farm or a homestead, you quickly realize you can't do everything by yourself. And you realize, yes, I'm going to need someone to maybe grow some hay for my animals, or grow some feed or some grains that I can buy from them, or help me transport some animals that are too big to fit in my car, for example. So there are so many ways that farming and homesteading really builds communities. And I think as long as you're building new relationships, you might meet other homesteaders and other farmers, and you can really help each other grow and help each other learn. And that to me is a huge reason to do it, because I think that the social capital that we build by building a farm or a homestead is just as important as the food and all the other benefits that I'm talking about. There's also a huge benefit to the emotional connection that we have both to the land and also to our animals and plants and other beings. Or if you're getting eggs from hens that you see every day and take care of every day, that is completely different than picking up an egg carton at the store and not knowing anything about how those got there or the conditions that they were raised in and all of that. So I think to me that connection to the food, and also remembering, I planted this seed 6 months ago or 9 months ago, and now I'm reaping this fruit or these vegetables. That is a huge thing for us too. And another really important reason for us that farming and homesteading is so important is that it is essentially a good way to spend our time and to spend our lives. And what I mean by that is we have so many options for how we want to spend our time. We could be watching television, going on social media, maybe going to the mall. There are so many things that are essentially pulling for our attention. And when we have things to do on the farm, that is a way that we are choosing to be conscious about how we spend our time and what we spend our time doing. And that to me is a huge part of why it's important to consider how you want to live your life. And, being able to homestead and to farm and garden, those are things that make a huge difference, and all the other impacts I talked about. But also, if that's how you want to spend your time and that's how you want to live your life, it's a great investment of your time. It gets you off of the computer. And, my husband and I, we both work in technology. We have a software company called Access Ally that basically helps online course creators and coaches scale their businesses on WordPress. And we love this work, but we also need the balance of being outside and connecting with nature and all of these other things. So for us, it is important to consider how we want to live our lives, and farming and homesteading and gardening are a big part of how we want to do that. Another big reason to consider starting a homestead and starting a farm or a garden is the fitness benefits. So there's another YouTube channel called Farm Fit, which I highly recommend you check it out. But after moving here, my husband, Robin, gained 20 pounds of muscle in 1 year. So that was not at all planned. It wasn't something he was working on or anything like that, but just the sheer effort of lifting bales of hay and moving manure and just being a lot more active and building things, it really, really increased his muscle mass like you wouldn't believe. Another huge benefit that's tied to that is that you spend a lot more time outside. So you are really getting a lot more sunshine, you are connecting with fresh air and just like the natural colors of the changing seasons. All of those things have huge benefits mentally, emotionally, and physically. A big reason for us that we started a homestead and a garden and a farm is kind of a big one, which is climate change and carbon sequestration. So we rotate our sheep on pasture so that they eat the grass, let the grass grow back. They also poop in the different areas, and that enriches the soil and it essentially allows the grass to grow deep, deep roots and improve the soil. And essentially, as they're eating that grass, those deep roots die off and they sequester carbon. And obviously, I'll have another video all about that because sequestering carbon is such a big part of why we're doing this. But to me, that is super actionable. So we want to put our values into what we do. And, we have this value that we want to leave something for our children. We want them to have, a good future and somewhere to live that is, hospitable and sustainable and all of these things. And it's not just about reducing the impacts that we have with our choices, but it's also about regenerating the soil and reversing some of the damage that we've done as a human species. And that to me is through carbon sequestration, all of these strategies that we can apply to the farm and the soil and the land. So that is a really big one for us. And finally, another big reason that we started a farm is really to have that connection to our food and the land, but also to our ancestors and also to our future generations. So one of the things I loved about growing up where I grew up was my grandmother had these amazing raspberry bushes, and we used to pick so many raspberries every summer. She also had these trees we could climb, and it was just such a great upbringing, and I want to create that for my family. So that was a big part of it too. We have kids, we want them to be able to play, to pick their own food, and this year we planted about 12 raspberry bushes here. They're super tiny. They haven't really produced a ton yet, maybe a handful or two of raspberries this summer. That is a huge thing for us, is how can we honor our ancestors and kind of what they did for their food and for their health and well-being, and then also pass that on to our kids if we can. So those are some of the reasons that we started a farm and a homestead. You might have other reasons, you might have other plans for your homestead or your farm, and they're all super valid. So if you are being called to this, you might want to check out our other videos here on the Waykeeper Farm and Nerdery channel. I'm Natalie Lucier, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to catch you in the next one.